While Andrea Kimi Antonelli is getting ready for his first Formula One season, Freddie Slater is copying the young Italian's rapid rise through the ranks and is winning even more along the way. Hello and welcome fellow motorsports fans. The core winter feeder series in the Middle East are now up and running and have given us plenty of good racing to talk about. And of course we've got the usual karting report and news segment as well, so let's not waste any more time. We'll get to Freddie Slater and the Middle Eastern rounds in a minute, but first a look at the second Formula Regional round over in New Zealand, where this time we got the level of Arvid Lindblad dominance I had anticipated for the season. And as if winning 2 races and taking a podium in the reverse grid wasn't enough, he also did it on a weekend where his M2 teammates didn't look particularly on fire. If anyone still had doubts that he'll be the man to beat, surely we are all on the same page by now. MTech keeps putting up a fight, spearheaded by surprising ace driver Zach SKUSA. The local kid has proven that last weekend indeed wasn't just a fluke and that he is in fact the closest competitor to Lindblad to date. Meanwhile, his teammate Josh Pearson may be P4 in the standings and has gotten a very surprising compliment thread over in the IndyCar subreddit. But for my money, he isn't making a particularly great look next to young SKUSA. He feels more like a top of the mid-pack kind of driver than a true front runner so far in my opinion, which obviously is by no means bad, given his overwhelming experience advantage probably isn't quite enough to actually impress. Patrick Heusenroder on the other hand was unfortunately not able to repeat his overtaking spree, but then again it proved to be an even more difficult track at this than last week. Will Brown keeps showing the pace of a front runner, but has made a key error in race 3 to spin him down the order. He is a safe bet for a podium in most cases, and he is clearly just here to have a bit of fun over the winter anyway. I believe unfortunately next week we'll have to do without his fancy racecraft, as he will be busy testing for the 12 hours of Bathurst. The shoutout of the week has to go to Sebastian Manson for his flawless reverse grid race, converting a fortunate pole to a comfortable looking victory under pressure of Nikita Johnson nonetheless. While this was clearly a lucky combination of reverse grid and a hard to pass on track, a win is a win, so definitely one worth shouting out. Over to Yas Marina, where the Formula Regional Middle East kicked off with a weekend of Freddie Slater domination, despite this being his first weekend in the car, of course. The title may sound rather clickbaity, and of course I don't think one weekend means a whole lot, but yes, this is indeed even better than what Kimi did 2 years ago. And of course, this is not the first time he has one-upped Kimi either, as he has of course beaten his win record in the Italian F4 last year as well. In case anyone still had any doubts, Freddie Slater is indeed something rather special, and I am already feeling rather confident to predict him in F1 come 2027 when he'll be old enough to join. As for the rest of Prema, yes, I'll be referring to both the Mumbai Falcons and Prema as Prema for the Middle Eastern Winter Series. Rashid Al-Daheri looked like the clear-cut second best man. He has also been very quick around this track every time he's been there, and of course he's got plenty of experience there, so he was pleasantly competent from the get-go in the car as well. Reza Siburthan may be taking a bit longer to adjust, but has also looked pretty solid all around for a debutant. It was really only Jack Doohan who took all weekend to adjust to the car, but finally looked a little more in sync by the 3rd race. Hopefully he'll be able to join his teammates in the upper mid-pack going forward. French rising star Evan Gilter is the main title rival for Fast Freddy so far, with 2 podiums to his name. ART teammate and French F4 champ Taito Kato had a strong debut with consistent points, and Konato Lee finally got his first win on this level after it has to be said unfortunately, rather mediocre year in GB3. I still think he'll end up worst of the squad over the season, but he has definitely raised the bar a little with this. RSGP presumably brought a strong package, but struggled a little to shine outside of the reverse grid win for Enzo Dellini. Yuki Chukwu had a bit of a disappointing weekend. Yet again, Formula Region in the Middle East really is not kind to him, much like last year. Jin Nakamura and Akshay Bora took a little bit to adjust, but both had decent pace, and I'm sure they'll get their moments to shine. Even if Bora looks horrible in the standings after this one, do not get fooled by just one table on Wikipedia. F3 bound Theo Final and Brando Badoer both more or less showed what you'd expect. Neither team really looked capable of winning, but still consistent upper midfield runs from both of them. Of course, you'd hope both leave the season with at least a win or two to their name, but ideally they are just here to give a lot of good wheel-to-wheel experience for the graduates to the category. And last but not least, shout out to two pinnacle drivers. Red Bull Jr. and S. Rivera had a really strong debut, all things considered, and Jessica Rascade looks improved yet again, firmly out of the backmarker category of drivers with a podium on merit as the cherry on top. He is one of those perfect examples for just how much these kids are still learning year after year. In the Formula 4 Middle East, we've had a weekend all about RASGP versus Prema at the front. Emanuele Olivieri making the most of his team upgrade with 2 strong wins from pole and another podium, while Kean Nakamura-Berta is very much keeping him honest with consistent P2s over the weekend. Both RASGP's Alex Powell and Prema's Thomas Stoltzmanis were involved in making it a 2v2, at least on paper. Powell stalling from the front row in both non-reverse grid races did cost the team and himself huge points, despite a mad recovery effort in race 3. Meanwhile, Stoltzmanis has finally gotten his first ever single-seater win. Even if it was only the reverse grid race, I couldn't be any happier for him, as he is one of my personal fan favourites. Time will tell if the switch to RSGP will pay off for Alex Powell. Certainly looking like absolute rocket ships in the Middle East, but they usually do not have the same form over in Europe for the Italian F4. I am just glad he is going to go up against Kean Nakamura-Berta and Stoltzmanis at the sharp end of a grid yet again this year. Prema was really strong across the board. Surprisingly, highly anticipated, Alexander Bondarev struggled the most aside from Arjun Cheddar. Colombian rookie Salman showed the same strong pace from the trophy rounds, but struggled to get a clean race in after his rookie win in the opener. Both Shenrui Chi and rising American star Sebastian Weldon also had strong top 5 runs, although Chi understandably couldn't quite match his teammates' consistency just yet. RSGP on the other hand was much more of a mixed bag outside of their couple of stars. Solid midfield runs from Alexander Savinkov, but not too much to show for Emily Cotti just yet. Both definitely lots of room for development over the course of the year. Savinkov may not be a rookie, but let's face it, he didn't exactly have the most competitive equipment last season. The upper midfield as a whole was very diverse in terms of teams, which is very good to see. The experienced hands of Rino Franco, Martin Molnar and Adam Alazari all had their opportunities for strong runs. No big surprises there really, and it'll really take more of the season to let this dynamic unfold further. Expect all of these to remain in the points on a consistent basis going forward. Ignoring the Prema crowd, the other leading rookies, DCC, Kiyo Lee and Cole Heetson, the South African guy on the grid, I'm really sorry I forgot how to pronounce your name already, all came into the weekend pretty strong as well, scoring once each and generally competing well in the pack. I am personally particularly happy for Kiyo Lee, showing that winning the OKN World Cup was no fluke, and I'll love to see more South Koreans in the sport anyway. DCC has been near the top of European junior karting for a while, but has always just fallen short of greatness, so I'm sure there are good things to come from him. And I've only ever seen Cole Heetson, the South African guy, in the Champions of the Future Academy this year, where he was alright, but didn't exactly stand out compared to his performance here. So let's see if he can go build on this going forward. Anyway, that was it for the feeder series portion of the show. Let's go over to our karting report. We've had a proper wet weather war at Orlando for the ROC Florida Winter Tour, and once again I've picked the top 4 most interesting classes for you to know about. In the micros, young Brazilian Álvaro Medeiros pulled out an absolute masterclass to dominate the race from P5 on the grid in rather tricky conditions. Zev Gottschalk could only watch on as his competitor ran away. The minis didn't have Zane Burgess competing this week, so instead I thought Santiago Orioli was in a great position to win, but he couldn't quite stand up to rapid Cameron Johnson and had to accept P2. Is Cameron Johnson related to Nikita Johnson by any chance? Can any Americans in the comments let me know if you know? Either way, big charges all around in this one. Asher Pavan and Alex Chandler do come to mind as well. This was really one of the races to watch. The juniors had the only drying track of the lot, giving Alexander Vanchav the perfect opportunity for a dominant win. Definitely the guy I've noticed the most so far in the juniors these past 2 weeks among the drivers I wasn't familiar with yet, and a clear front runner in American junior karting this year. If you're, like me, new to American karting, definitely keep an eye on this guy. Penalty drama changed the winner in the seniors after Diego Ramos did an excellent job to keep British rising star Caden McQueen at an arm's length all race, only to concede the win post-race with an extra 5 seconds. Still more than enough to keep P2 ahead of the distant pack. Unfortunately, across both the senior categories present here, neither grid looked particularly juicy and the shifter scene was just entirely missing. If this is your first time watching the ROC Florida Tour, just know what to expect. The upper end of the older guys competing, the grids aren't all that impressive. I know there was Robin Raikkonen racing over in Thailand as well, but I'm sure we'll get to talk about the young Finn plenty when the European season starts rolling around. Until then, it is time for the news. Quick news roundup to end on with a couple of big ones for next year's Formula 3. Christian Ho and Ivan Dominguez are confirmed to race for DAMS and VAR respectively next year. In Christian Ho's case, I think this is solid, though expected news. It appears he just can't afford to stay with Campos despite 2 excellent seasons with the team, but I am just glad he'll be in F3 like he deserves. For Ivan Dominguez, I'm a little more on the fence. I do think he is solid enough as a driver, though another year developing in FROC certainly wouldn't have hurt him in my opinion. A bit less exciting overall, but nonetheless a solid announcement. Then we had the abysmal confirmation that Kean Shields will indeed occupy the second AIX seat in F2 next season. I've said it when he got to fill in at the end of last year. He was potentially the worst driver in F3 last season and should in no way be close to an F2 car unless he is tasked with polishing it or something. But this may just be my opinion, so feel free to drop yours down in the comments. Last but not least, more F1 Academy announcements as Alba Herb Larsen has been confirmed to join MP Motorsports for next year. I can't tell you much about her, but by all accounts she looks like the perfect candidate for a series like F1 Academy, so I am very much looking forward to see her in action. And as a new twist to end on, I'd like to introduce Driver of the Week to highlight a driver at the end of each episode, and in classic F1 fashion, I'll try my best to pick someone who doesn't quite get as much spotlight normally. That said, my driver of the week was Emanuele Olivieri. Not only did he win a lot, he did it quite out of left field for me. Feel free to drop your nomination down in the comments together with all of your other thoughts about this week's Feeder Series action. I love a nice and vibrant discussion in the comments. That's it from me. I thank you all for watching and I hope to catch you in the next one.